Chapter 4 Spacewalk. Jax looked at his mechanical friend and smiled. He looked around again, bracing himself as he floated. This isn't my forte either. He turned to the ceiling. Skip? What's an... He looked at Naomi. Alluvial damper, she said. I heard her, Skip interrupted. The alluvial damper manages power flow between the reactor and the wormhole generator. There was a pause. I'm a little embarrassed that Naomi could identify the issue faster than I could. My thanks. You're very welcome, Skip, Naomi replied sweetly. I'm sure your diagnostic would have gotten to it. Directly interfacing with the reactor at the firmware level, let me take a shortcut that isn't available to you. When this meeting of the Mutual Admiration Society concludes, let me know, Jax groused. From the hatch, Baxter barked a metallic-sounding laugh. Be nice, Naomi hissed. Skip continued. Anyway, the alluvial damper failed, rather spectacularly, I might add. A monitor came to life, showing a camera view of the topside of the Osprey. Normally, the view would show the sleek curves of the ship's hull. Right then, it showed a jagged tear in the hull, something inside sending sparks into space. Skip continued. It caused a cascade failure along the main power trunk, which is why most of the power is out, and the reactor automatically scrammed. That's not supposed to happen, right? Jax asked. Yes and no. The Osprey's SI paused. The reactor scramming is exactly what was supposed to happen. Likewise, the main fuses tripping. Had those things not happened, the cascade would have destroyed the entire main bus, and possibly put the reactor into overload. The ship's SI paused to let that sink in, then added, The alluvial damper failing is definitely not something that should happen. That is likely a result of the secondary fuse assembly failing. Something, I might add, I warned you could happen if the primary fuse tripped. Jax made a face. I thought we fixed it. He pushed himself off of the display he was using to get closer to the main reactor panel. Skip made a noise. We did not. From the speaker came Jax's voice. We'll fix it later. I'm sure it'll be fine for a while. Those are expensive. Naomi looked at Jax, her mouth pressed into a fine line. She was hovering motionless in the middle of the space. Jax rubbed his face. Okay, no more recording our conversations. That's your takeaway? Naomi put both hands on her hips, which caused her to rotate in place until she grabbed something on the ceiling. Jax waved her off. No. Skip, what are our options? And I'm sorry I didn't take your warning seriously before. Thank you. Luckily, we are not completely screwed. I believe we can fashion a temporary fix. We'll need to effect actual repairs on New Terra, but getting there should be possible. Skip explained what needed to happen and how to make the repairs. Once they knew what the problem was, getting the reactor and gravity back online took little time. After that, the industrial fabricator in the corner of the engineering space came to life. In the common area, Jeffrey was hyperventilating after being told he'd have to spacewalk with Jax to fix the broken alluvial damper and fuse assembly. The younger man moaned. I've never spacewalked. I don't even like space travel. It's easy, Jax replied. Why can't Naomi do it? Jeffrey, stop being such a baby, Governor Singh chastised. If Jax says it's safe, we can trust him. I need to help Skip test the equipment, and I can't. She paused. Jeffrey and Governor Singh did not know that she was an interface. Do that from outside. I need to be at the console in engineering. Jax looked over and winked. She sighed and rolled her eyes. He said this piece of junk was safe, the administrative assistant protested, gesturing around the common deck. No offense taken, Skip deadpanned from the overhead speaker. Jeffrey groaned. Fine. Jax smiled. That's the spirit. It won't take long. He pointed to the spiral staircase. Let's go suit up. The Osprey didn't have a large inventory of suits. The other reason Naomi made little sense as one of the spacewalkers was that none of the suits were her size, something Jax had to promise to remedy at the next opportunity. There were 2 rugged EVA suits in the storage locker at the forward section of the embarkation room at the lowest level of the ship, on the opposite side of the spiral staircase as the boarding ramp. Jax pressed a control next to the boarding ramp, causing the thick metal plating to slide into place, cutting off the embarkation room from the rest of the ship. The spiral staircase that ran from that room to the flight deck had a break in it at each deck for seals to move into place. He turned to Jeffrey. "Ready?" "Not even a little," the other man replied from inside his suit. He reached up to his face, his gloved hand smacking into the faceplate. He frowned and lowered his hand. Next to them was a toolbox and a piece of equipment that neither of them recognized or really understood, fresh off the industrial fabricator. Jax pressed another control, causing the air in the small space to evacuate. Another button soundlessly lowered the boarding ramp. Jax clipped a tether from his belt to a ring just inside the opening of the ramp. Before Jeffrey could take a step, Jax reached out and grabbed his tether and attached it as well. Jax picked up the replacement part that Skip had manufactured in engineering. He nodded at the toolbox. "You get that." In the common area, Naomi looked at the governor. "I was thinking chicken tikka masala for dinner." The older woman sitting on the sofa turned to look at the kitchen area where Naomi was standing. "I would like that. I'll help." She stood and joined Naomi in the small kitchenette space. She opened one of the cupboards, seeing the fruits of Naomi's earlier shopping excursion. "I like you," she smiled. Back on track. No, not that one," Jax shouted over the comms. Skip piped the 2 men's comms into the ship, so Naomi and the governor could keep tabs on the progress of the repairs. Naomi looked at the governor, eyebrow raised. The older woman shrugged. "Don't snap at me," Jeffrey replied. "Here." There was a pause. "Thanks. Sorry," from Jax. Rudy rolled over to the 2 women. "Need any help?" Governor Singh looked down at the rust-colored navigation droid. "You can chop the garlic and the pepper." She offered a cutting board and a knife. Rudy took the board but waved away the knife. "I have my own." Both of the governor's eyes opened wide. She looked at Naomi, then back to Rudy as he rolled over to the small dining table to work. A hatch on his side opened, revealing a glistening 8-inch-long knife. Naomi turned to look. "He picked up a new hobby back on Thamura." "Cooking?" Naomi turned back to her work. "Stabbing and cutting." At the table, Rudy's gunmetal gray arm was a blur as he diced the garlic and chopped the pepper. From the overhead speakers, Jax shouted, "No, damn it, are you trying to kill us?" "Don't yell at me," Jeffrey replied. "Then pay attention," Jax snapped. "Hand me the number 4 spanner." After a moment, "Thank you." Naomi looked at the governor. "Should we lay odds on whether both of them make it back inside?" The small-framed Indian woman looked up. "He'd better not hurt Jeffrey. That boy is a wonder in the office." Naomi chuckled. "How long has he worked for you?" The governor thought for a moment. 3 years now. He came on board after my last assistant retired." She grinned. "I decided to try a younger one this time. Get more out of him." Naomi shook her head. "Kinda diabolical." The older woman winked. "I plan to be in office for a while." "We're done. Naomi, can you and Skip confirm?" Jax asked over the ceiling speakers. Naomi put down the bowl she was holding and went to the stairwell. She looked at the ceiling. "1 second." "No rush. We're just hanging out here, being blasted by cosmic radiation," Jax quipped. "What?" Jeffrey exclaimed. "I'm kidding. Calm down," Jax replied. As Naomi entered the engineering space, she called out, "Skip, ready?" "I am," the overhead speaker answered. The primary display on the reactor control panel came to life at the same time. A wireframe of the Osprey was rotating slowly. A section of the ship was blinking yellow, the newly installed temporary fix to the damaged alluvial damper. As Naomi placed both hands on the control console, Her blue subdermal biocircuitry lit up. The blue lines along her arms pulsed, and the lines around her eyes glowed as data flowed to her optic nerves. "I'm in. The power control system seems happy. I agree. Are you able to access the wormhole generator? I can run a diagnostic, but that would take an hour." "1 second." She closed her eyes for a moment. "Okay, yeah. The generator is getting positive control connections from the new hardware. I'm having it run a self-test routine now." "I have a positive data stream," the ship's SI announced. Naomi looked up, her biocircuitry faded. "Jax, we're good here. You two can come back in." "Thank God," Jeffrey said. Jax chuckled. "We're heading in." Naomi looked around. "Skip, you good?" "I am. You may go back to your cooking," the SI replied. Even with the hatch separating the cargo and engineering deck from the embarkation room closed, she could hear the clanking and jostling of the two space-suited men returning. By the time Jax and Jeffrey made it up to the common deck, dinner was ready and waiting. Jax nudged Jeffrey. "See, this was worth it, right?" The younger man clucked. "I'm pretty sure I'd be eating chicken tikka masala whether I went out there." He motioned to the nearest bulkhead and deep space beyond it. "Or not." Now arriving. The temporary fix to the alluvial damper held all the way to New Terra. Only once during the rest of the trip did Jax prank Jeffrey by running down the stairs, screaming about an impending explosion. Jeffrey didn't stop screaming for 5 minutes. The Osprey dropped out of the purple and green swirl of disrupted space-time, right into the middle of 4 Imperial Warhammer-class cruisers. Jack said. "We're in the outer system. 4 Warhammer-class cruisers, all in weapons range," Skip announced. "We're being targeted," the ship's SI added. "And hailed," Rudy said. Jax reached for the communication controls as Governor Singh came up the stairs. "What's going on?" Jax looked over his shoulder and tilted his head so she could see his tactical screen. "This is Independent Transport Osprey. We're transporting a VIP to some kind of summit or something on New Terra. Osprey, we're sending a nav plot to you now. Proceed to the indicated coordinates and power down to await customs inspection." An anonymous voice came from the speakers. It added, "Any deviation from the nav plot will result in the loss of your Starship operator's license." Okay, but we're kind of in a hurry. Our VIP needs to be at her meeting," the voice interrupted. "You will proceed to the designated coordinates." The comm system beeped. Channel closed. "Fucking Imperials," Governor Singh hissed as she descended the stairs. "Imperial Corvette inbound," Skip announced. "It is on course for the rendezvous they gave us." Jack stood. "Time to prep for visitors." "You have a vault?" Jeffrey asked, as Jax pushed the reinforced hatch closed. The two of them were in the armory in the ship's bow off the cargo hold. The Osprey was too small to be much use smuggling things, but occasionally Jax needed to keep things from prying eyes and sensors. It was not an enormous space, but it was large enough for a combat droid. Jax winked. "Just for special stuff." He turned, gesturing for Jeffrey to leave the room with wall-to-wall weapons and equipment. "Be good in there." "Just get rid of them," Baxter complained from inside the vault over comms. "There wasn't a vault in the Osprey when your parents had her," Governor Singh said, arms crossed, as Jax joined everyone else in the cargo hold. Jax looked at the ceiling. Just a little something I added once I started flying her." His adopted aunt growled. He held up both hands. "It's not like I'm running guns or drugs. Just the occasional contraband." He made air quotes at the end. There was a clang from the port cargo door. A light on the personnel hatch in the larger cargo door blinked from red to orange, then settled on green. Jax nodded toward the personnel hatch. "Company's here." He moved over to the hatch and pressed the release. He stepped back as the heavy hatch swung open. "You could at least buy me a drink." 6 matte gray armored shock troopers stomped into the cargo bay. They fanned out 3 to a side, taking position on both sides of the personnel hatch. During the war, the shock troops' armor went through several design revisions until it was settled that they be as physically imposing as possible. The thick armor could deflect weapons fire from pistols. Micro-musculature threads running through every piece of the armor doubled the wearer's strength. An officer, a man in his 50s by Jax's estimate, walked in. His crimson uniform was pressed and covered in medals. He looked around, steel-blue eyes locking on Jax. "Captain Burns." Governor Singh turned to her adopted nephew, eyebrows raised. He coughed. "Oh, sorry, that's an old record. Caruso, Jackson Caruso." The officer nodded. "I'm Commander McGarry. I'll be conducting your customs inspection. Anything else you want to tell me before we start?" Governor Singh stepped forward. "Hello, Commander. I'm Governor Niti Singh of Kelso Station. We're expected at the Imperial Palace. If we could—" McGarry cut her off. "This will take as long as it takes. I'm sure the Emperor will understand, especially if we find contraband." He turned back to Jax. "Anything you tell me now will be looked at more favorably than if we find it ourselves." Jax put his hands on his chest. "I run a clean ship, sir. Just ferrying this nice lady to the capital." Commander McGarry harumphed, then turned to his troops. "2 here, 2 on the deck above." He turned to Jax once more, pointing to the opening in the stairwell leading down to the embarkation room. "Your boarding room?" Jax nodded. He turned back to his troops. "1 there, 1 up on the bridge." The shock troopers nodded as one and split up to their various assignments. Commander McGarry followed, heading up the staircase. Jax looked at the others and shrugged. "Good times." He headed for the stairs. Everyone else fell in behind him. Jeffrey leaned down to his boss. "Burns?" The older Indian woman shrugged. When Jax and the others arrived on the common deck, Commander McGarry looked at them. "You have a droid." It wasn't a question. Rudy was next to the main entertainment screen, plugged into his charging base. Jax nodded slowly. "A nav droid, yes. You didn't mention it earlier." "You're right. I also have a refrigerator. Droids aren't illegal," Jax replied, standing taller, his chest puffed up a bit. "The ship has an SI as well." The commander stared at Jax a moment, then turned and headed for the living quarters. Over his shoulder, he said, "When you land, keep your droid aboard the ship. It isn't welcome on New Terra." He nodded to a shock trooper that was standing at the first of 3 doors to the living quarters, the room Jax and Jeffrey were sharing. Governor Singh placed a hand on Jax's arm, once all the Imperials on the common deck were out of sight. "Burns?" Naomi whistled softly, looking at the ceiling. Jax shook his head. "These assholes don't need to know who I am." When he saw the confusion on both the governor's and Jeffrey's faces, he continued. "Besides the other modifications post Mom and Dad owning the ship, I hacked the identity module so Skip could update it on the fly. They'd need a top-flight hacker to even notice the hack," he whispered. "Anytime we encounter Imperials, it's under a unique name." "I appreciate you not playing that game this time," Jax's adoptive aunt said. "They know who I am, so it would have caused us unnecessary drama." "What about your G-phone identity?" Jeffrey asked, holding up a finger. Each G-phone contained a secure enclave chip that held health and identity records for its owner. Presumed to be nearly unhackable, G-phones were universally used for personal identification and data storage. Jack smiled. "Hacked as well. Whenever Skip updates his identity core, it propagates to my phone." He wiggled his eyebrows in satisfaction. "We encrypted my actual records on the device. I can access them when needed." Commander McGarry leaned out of the quarters that were normally Jax's. "Captain?" Jax took a deep breath. "Coming, Commander." "What is this?" the commander asked. He and one of the shock troopers were in Jax's quarters, which, despite being larger than the other two, didn't leave a lot of room for Jax to join them. "What's what?" Jax asked, trying to see past the shock trooper. The hulking gray armor took up a lot of space. Commander McGarry held up a locked box, a very rugged-looking locked box. "Porn," Jax replied without a second thought. "Porn?" The commander dropped the safe on the bed. He turned to Jax. "You keep your pornography in a personal safe?" "My desires are unconventional," Jax replied, straight-faced. The Imperial officer's eyes went wide. The shock trooper standing next to Jack shuffled slightly to the side, away from Jax. Interesting tastes. "What are you doing?" Skip asked the shock trooper, who was poking at Jax's command console. The trooper had a portable data console connected to the flight controls. "Shut up," the trooper said. He continued to work, using his console to dig through flight records, Jack's personal logs, and more. The bridge went dark. The trooper stood up. "Don't make me call my commander, you stupid droid." The speakers crackled. "Excuse me, I am not a droid. I am a Mark III sapient intelligence. I can process more data in a second than your feeble human brain will process in your lifetime." "I have a job to do," the trooper retorted. "I'm going to do it." The lights on the bridge flickered, changing color and intensity, causing the trooper to turn in a circle looking for a threat. The portable console screen went dark, then came back to life. Startled, the trooper turned back to his work and stumbled backwards. "What the hell is that?" "Jax calls it tentacle porn," Skip replied cheerfully. "Well, stop it," the trooper said. "No," Skip replied. The trooper turned to his console and immediately turned away again. He put a hand to the side of his helmet. "Commander," Jax's answer about the lockbox drove the Imperial commander from the main berth to Naomi's room. "This place is a mess," the haughty Imperial said, looking around. Jax opened his mouth, but said nothing, as the commander put his finger to his ear, no doubt the ear with a comm set in it. He nodded along as someone said something. Turning to Jax, "We're done here." He looked at the trooper and motioned them out of the room. As the last of the troopers filed out of the personnel hatch to the Imperial corvette connected to the Osprey, the commander looked at Jax, Naomi, and the others. "Welcome to New Terra. Remember what I said about the droid?" He didn't wait for an acknowledgement, turning and walking down the boarding tube connecting the two ships. The commander stopped and looked at Jax as the shock troopers continued into the corvette. "You need to find religion." He continued into his ship. Jax rushed over and slammed the hatch shut, pressing the control next to the larger cargo door to lock it. A second later, a loud clunk sounded from the opposite side of the cargo door as the docking tube disengaged and retracted back to the Imperial vessel. "What did he want in your quarters?" Naomi asked, as the group moved up the staircase. "They found my lockbox," Jax replied, not looking back. "The one under your bed?" Governor Singh asked. That time Jax turned as they all came out on the common deck, and he took a few steps up to be out of their way. "You been snooping, Auntie?" The old woman shrugged. "It's what we do. What's in it?" Jax continued climbing the stairs. "None of your business." He whistled tunelessly as he continued up the stairs to the bridge. "We're cleared to continue on to New Terra," Skip said from the overhead speakers as Jax arrived on the flight deck. Jax nodded. "Any trouble up here?" "None. The trooper was trying to snoop until I showed him your more exotic pornography." "What?" "The tentacle stuff," the ship's SI explained. "Oh." Jax made a pained expression as he sat down. "That's not really what I accessed your more recent acquisition." "Yeah, okay. That's enough tentacle talk. Thanks." He brought the sub-light engines online and throttled up. From the deck below, 3 loud bangs echoed. "Could someone let Baxter out, please?" Jax shouted. as he guided the osprey toward her destination.